if you guys are wondering where we're at, we're in Nicaragua. And I have here a topographical map so you can kind of see how mountain it is. But the borders around Nicaragua are right here. Costa Rica's to the south and Honduras is to the north. We entered in down here and spent some time in Managua, which is right here. We went to Masaya, and then we came up in here into the mountains somewhere of Matagalpa. And so right now we're in that area, and I don't know if you can see those three little pinholes right there, but that's kind of where we're at, staring down into this valley. A really gorgeous region. As you can see, the mountains kind of run through central Nicaragua. The highest mountains are up to the north. We haven't gotten into these, not sure that we will. And then there's a flat spot out here with some beaches on the Caribbean. Again, don't know if we'll get out there. Wanted to give you an idea of where we're at, because we're at a very special place. And today, we're all super lucky because we're going to get a tour of the behind the scenes of this place. And it's going to be really interesting to you guys, I think, because they incorporate a lot of technology that we do in van life or solve a lot of the problems. So this is like off-grid, sustainable living. So think composting, think batteries, solar, 12 volt, inverters, unique ways of heating, using the environment, all kinds of cool stuff. I don't want to spoil the tour. Not that I know enough about it to spoil it too much. But guys, this is going to be really cool, so you'll want to follow along. What's it called again?
Esperanza Verde.
What does Esperanza mean?
It means hope, and it's green hope. So it's
green hope
farm.
Okay.
That's the name in translation. This was a beautiful place that had been found by a couple from North Carolina. They came here many, many years ago, fell in love with San Ramon, which is the community that, where the municipality is. It's a town. They started to build schools and they helped the community sort of, get on the map, so people started to visit.
So is that school that I passed down the road, is that one of the schools that they built?
It is indeed. That's the school in Yucul, the largest one in the region of San Ramon. Here in the garden, this would probably not be the best example because we don't have guests at the moment, but this is kind of where we concentrate all our plants and where we cultivate 5 or 6 different varieties of lettuce. We've got 2 or 3 types of kale, parsley, celery, ginger. We have chamomile flowers, broccoli. We have.
Oh, you do broccoli and maybe like cauliflowers. And do you do any like cabbages or anything like that?
We don't here in the garden because what we rather do is buy the cabbage and carrots. Actually, we've been buying from our neighboring farmers. So here, we are on 100% organic farm here. So it's really the methods that we use. Sometimes it's virtually impossible to do every single type of vegetable. There are a lot of things that we're trying to avoid in terms of any kind of chemicals. So we stay away from a few of the vegetables that we can't really cultivate here. But we also have a greenhouse. A greenhouse has the tomatoes and peppers. Basil does very well in there. It's also where we start our seedlings for lettuce and the parsley and the kale. So all these are started, it's something like many gardeners will do if they have a greenhouse. This is where we start, rainy season especially. So it's really a wonderful kind of a cycle that we incorporate here. But the beauty of being able to just have this all year round is really...
So the garden is west facing. Is that strategic in nature? I think, right?
Well,
the sun sets kind of over there.
Yes, so it does. It not strategic. I think we're limited here because we're definitely in the mountains. We're trying to keep an area that was probably originally for cattle. There weren't trees here, so this is where the garden was planted.
Describe the kind of the climate here, just generally. Like, what's the temperature ranges and all that type of stuff, and the seasons and.
Well, Finca Esperanza Verde is in a very unique kind of location. We have a little microclimate here. So even though it's subtropical, we do have quite a bit more rain than most of this altitude.
Which is about what, 3,500, 4,000 feet?
About 4,000. Yeah,
4,000?
the high point, yes, for sure.
Wow. So you have weather 50 to 70 Fahrenheit, 50 to 80, 85 year round.
Range. That's year round.
Yeah. And I think we've seen that come and go many times. 50, 60, 70, 80. We see that every day.
The cover is very natural here. It is a cloud forest.
It's a cloud forest. Okay, I was wondering that. What are these things right here?
Oh, so these are nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are edible flowers, an edible leaf. So it's the whole thing. And that's something that, yes, I haven't served you up on that salad that you've been having the lettuce with. All that down there, full advantage of the terrace garden, or at least the terrain. Now that we don't have that many guests, we are limiting the area where we're going to be doing, most of our vegetables. So this is all corn, and we just did the corn, so you haven't seen that part. But this is all beans that we planted. This is the staple here that we.
The red beans you were telling me about, yeah. And those are the beans I was asking about at the end. So I guess that's kind of a marker in terms of what's planted inside there.
So that's called carnavalia. So that's a legume, and it's meant really for nitrogen. It fixes nitrogen into the ground, just like all the beans do. So the beans not only are feeding us, but it's also fixing and improving the soil.
Oh, okay. So everything kind of works in balance.
Yeah.
And so is that like oregano?
That's thyme.
Thyme, okay. Thyme. And next to it.
So that's an onion, but it's a very fine onion that has a garlicky taste to it.
So you mostly like eat the blade or the... Yeah.
It's really the blade that we're eating. This, of course, is chive. This is soybean that we're planting here, by the way.
And it looks like Jefe's just showed up. Buenos dias. All right, so see those little spindly sort of like trees? I guess that's what I'm going to call them. That's yucca, right?
Or cassava.
Yucca or cassava. Yeah. So you actually eat the roots down below, right? You dig them up. Now, when you dig up the roots, does the whole tree go, or
yes, you basically have to cut down the tree once you've taken the root out.
Wow.
And you plant the root back. You can keep some of the root in there, and it'll sprout quite quickly.
Okay, so it's pretty hardy.
It's hardy.
And then you guys can see all the citrus trees down here, and then the banana trees in the background, and then the coffee in the background, which is where we're headed now. And I know you guys have already seen us do a couple coffee tours, but I promise this one's going to be unique and different, and you are going to love it.
No special one that we're looking for now. He's just trying to find one if there's
any left over.
Yeah, left over, so he can show you what the cherry is. But you already know that from the last coffee tour.
All right.
Show you okay, this is a green one.
He was able to find a green coffee bean.
Un fruto verde, y falta que madure. Ya está rojo.
Sí.
Ya está bien de cosechar, de cortar.
So it's still green. It's waiting to get ripened, but that's one that was left behind, which is a coffee bean, by the way. So that's what I want to make sure that's clear on your audience. The coffee beans are seeds.
They are seeds.
Yeah. Be straight enough to really have a healthy life.
Okay, yeah. So that is a coffee, little self-germinated bean. Cool. So you'd have a hard time getting that one to play nicely and be a perfect plant.
Yeah, that's right. It didn't ripen in time, therefore it wouldn't be the optimal selection for a seed.
So now that we've picked all the little green beans, the green coffee beans, which are also the seeds.
So this is the actual seed bed.
Esta es una variedad Java.
This variety is Java, or Java.
Tenemos Parainema.
This on this side is a Parainema.
So this is the place where the seeds are planted to germinate. And so they're they're under shade. There's a couple different varieties here you can see. But the sun, even up here, is too bright, and you can see the little bean up on top of the sprout. It's cool. And there's one where it's kind of kicked off its bean finally. I'm sure it probably uses that for nutrients to sprout. But okay, so then they get a little bit bigger than this, and what do we do with them next?
Same. It's about the same timing. You know, it's 45 to 2 months. This is what the seed looks like. This is actually the green bean that we're familiar with the parchment still on it.
Yes.
Okay, and the pulping is done by hand when we're selecting seeds. So this is really what goes in the ground to begin with. So that's what we're seeing popping up right now.
Oh, look, there's a little sprout, and you can see the roots on that already.
Este lo pasamos a la bolsa.
This is what it looks like when we pass it over, when we plant it in the bag. Which, by the way, some people some people germinate their coffee bean seed right directly in the bag. We don't, because we like to actually pick the best one before it's planted in the bag. Because once it's in the bag, then from there it goes out to
The field.
We want to make sure that we have one that has a chance.
So all this is done by hand, so you can see. And so it takes about 45 days for these seeds, these green beans, to germinate. And then they come over here. Now, I saw them yesterday putting, I think it's the composting material.
The soil that's in each bag is a mix that Pascual can give you the best example of what they do.
And they make their own, like, dirt here. Okay, so this is the finished product, but something goes in it is biscacci. And you guys know me, I can't pronounce stuff or say stuff right. So Vivian's actually laughing at me. We'll get it corrected though.
All right, well this is
Go ahead.
Bocacci, and so Pascual is going to explain exactly the ingredients. Los ingredientes que están en el Bocacci.
Los ingredientes que lleva es granza de arroz.
So it has rice grain. So it's really actually the parchment of the rice that we wouldn't find in where the rice fields are.
Lleva semolina, lleva carbón.
It has semolina. It has charcoal. Yeah.
Melaza.
Melaza is molasses.
That's what I thought it was. So there's flour and molasses. This is like food.
You can almost make bread out of it.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry.
So what it does is that this provides the food for the microorganisms. So when you mix it with the compost, you're actually enhancing and enriching the soil.
Okay.
More.
So this is really just a cornucopia of organic materials that you mix in here to mix with the worm castings to make sort of your final product.
That is correct.
And it's called Bocaccia.
Bocacci.
Bocacci. It's Bocacci.
It's a Japanese word.
Guys, just for the record, I'm going to say it right here. Bocacci. Yay! All right, this is very unique and something I'm excited that you guys get to see. So what are we looking at here?
Well, this is what is called vermiculture. So we have a worm farm. This is where the little worms are working very hard for us. They're providing the most rich humus that comes out of the worm casting from giving them all the food waste, or at least those clippings. And in this case, we have a lot of banana leaves that are chopped up. We use the pulp that's left over from the coffee processing, and all this is food for the worm. I can show you here the process.
So are the worms in like kind of in the, they're in this stuff?
So this is already harvested casting. The worms go from one side to another, and we kind of fool them by where we put the food. And what they do is they migrate over to the one side or the other where the food is, allowing all the soil to be left behind. And that's what we call.
So this black stuff, the finished product, at one point was that. So the worms turn it from that into that.
That's right.
And you can see it's kind of turning there. And look at the worms in there. And so they're just in there eating and pooping and making dirt. Or making worm castings.
Pulpa de café.
The pulpa, so use the pulp of the coffee bean And you guys have already seen that process. It goes through the beneficio.
Agregamos la cepa de banano picada.
So those two products, yeah. Now, how long does this process take to get it to move from that pile to this pile?
It's in a couple of months.
Couple of months.
So it's a continuous, and we have different stages. So we've got 4 or 5 bins here that you can see.
Creciendo más.
So you have some happy worms.
They're happy. So this is actually the urine, you can say. That we use it to spray. So this is also the nutritious value we can apply to the plants from the leaf point as opposed to the root side.
Okay, I'm going to call this worm juice. What do you call it?
We can call it worm juice.
Okay.
That's a nice name.
So worm castings and worm juice made from worms, bananas, and from the cherry that's shucked off of the coffee bean.
Exactly.
So cool. I was just educated on the difference. And so you can see. Now, composting, you don't necessarily need to cover it in plastic, though, right? You just leave it kind of out there, and then you stir it every once in a while as it decays. Is that?
Yeah, the reason why we cover it is because we've had several days of rain here, so we don't want it to be too wet. So that keeps it moist, but it doesn't keep it soggy. We don't want to drown the microorganisms that are working very hard to really create the compost, the decomposition that we're looking for.
Este compost que está en proceso de descomposición.
Yeah, so this is the one it's in the process. It's about a month old.
So how long does it take? So again, it's a couple months for the composting process.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty fast. I would have thought it'd been a slower process than that.
Well, it depends on really what you're throwing in the pile, because if you've got branches and large pieces, what we like to do is chop up. You know, those, for example, there are the bananas that are thrown on the ground there. They're left there on purpose, but so that when you do chop them up, it's much easier. So let's say it add another month to that. That would be then when it's incorporated into this. So how is this applied in the field? In other words, is this going to are these plants, now these are fairly young. I'm going to say these are probably a year old, maybe. These are 2 years old.
2 years old.
It's going to be 2. Well, I'm sorry, it's about 18 months.
So how are the worm castings and this incorporated in these plants, or are they only used for the seedlings?
Él está preguntando que si el compost lo utilizamos en el campo para cada planta.
Sí.
So we do incorporate them into all the plants in the field. That's actually feeding the plants. Instead of adding fertilizer, we add compost, which is already incorporated with the boccaccia. It's incorporated with some of the worm castings. So it's rich and everything that plants needs to combat disease, which is really why what's important about this is that it creates all the little microorganisms that are actually eating away on any insect that might be affecting the plant. So it's really a beautiful life cycle that's enriching a wonderful ecosystem that really keeps the plant healthy.
Ya inicio de mayo comenzamos a aplicar.
Starting in May, we start to apply it because that's our rainy season period.
So you want the rain to kind of deliver the nutrients down to the roots.
Exactly.
And so will they just kind of come along and just sprinkle a little bit around the plants? Is that kind of what the idea is?
Nosotros le echamos hacia alrededor de las raíces, ¿verdad?
Sí, vamos a hacer.
So we take a little bit of this and we just put it around.
Oh, look at that. Okay. Just like that.
That's why it's important also to keep the plants always clear of any weeds around it. As you can see, this is terraced, or it's flat. There's not going to be a lot of runoff for that reason. But everything that we apply to the soil is only to enhance it. It's only to improve it. It's always to regenerate it, because again, runoff, that does happen naturally, especially in the cloud forest, and during rainy season, there's an excessive amount of rain. So we have to keep really replenishing that soil. And that's why we have these piles.
And so it makes sense to have the piles close to the plant, so maybe even each place has kind of its own little composting.
Yes. What we try to do is avoid the direct contact with the humus, because the humus is so rich that sometimes it's actually overkill. So that's why it's mixed in with the soil.
Okay.
And it's diluted in a way.
Okay. The composting is good to put directly on there, but in terms of worm casting, you're going to mix that with the other ingredients we talked about, and then it's primarily going to be used for this.
Yeah. And so when we also plant new trees out there, so we put the babies out there, let's say in October, that hole is going to be filled with this good soil that's mixed in with some of that humus
Okay.
of the casting, of the worms. So that again is a mix that's going to give them the best chance possible to start.
Wow, it's a lot of work for a bean.
For a bean that you have to wait 4 years.
Well, I was just thinking about the amount of energy that goes in a cup of coffee. Like, it is insane the amount of energy that goes into a single cup of coffee, really. When you stop and think about this process, and then popping the cherry off and letting it dry, and then husking that, taking that shell off, roasting, grinding, brewing. I mean, it's
quite a journey.
That bean goes through a lot. Super cool. So, organic farm. Is this also like, I don't know if there's a category for sustainable culture or whatever. I mean, would this kind of fall in that category? I mean, not just the coffee, but the overall facility, with what you're doing here.
Yes, we are very, very focused right now on the sustainability part, because we think that, what we're doing is something quite sustainable, but we're also trying very hard to make some improvements. And so whatever the soil needs, we'll add to it, we'll regenerate it. That's a wonderful way to describe the new methods that we're applying. We're not exactly a permaculture farm, but we do apply a lot of their principles. I mean, this is something you can take back and you can create. You can have a beautiful little garden in your own backyard that you can apply all the principles that we apply here in organic gardening. I mean, it's something that we like to show that this is possible.
If people are interested in coming and getting a tour and seeing all this, or staying on the beautiful mountains, hiking on the hikes, looking at all the amazing animals and seeing all this stuff, maybe they just want to learn more about permaculture or life in Nicaragua or anything. How do they find you? How do they get more information?
Well, you can get all the information you need on our website, fincaesperanzaverde.com.
Can you spell that?
FINCA. Esperanza is ESPERANZA.
Okay.
Verde is VERDE.
There you go. There you go.
So
I'll put it on this screen for you guys.
So all the information you'd like to know about our finca, of our farm, is right there on our website. Bookings will be open soon. Hopefully by fall we'll have our place open again.
Okay, super cool. You guys definitely need to. You guys definitely need to come up here and see Vivian and Pascal and the crew. What an amazing place. One of the things I have to tell you about Latin America, and this is not just Nicaragua, this is all of Latin America, really, since we got into Mexico. The main tool, and you guys have heard me say this before, is the machete. But these guys yield a machete like nobody I've ever seen. You can see him basically mowing the yard with the greatest of ease. And you just walk down the roads, and they use them for so many things. I actually did a repair on one of the entrants. I'll show you that, but it's pretty cool. We just got done with the tour.
I'm learning all about the sloths.
Are you really?
See anymore?
He's moved.
He's gone.
He wasn't there.
There you go.
But I learned all about coffee. I got an amazing tour. This place is super cool.
Awesome. Yay.
Super cool.
It is time to leave this fantastic coffee farm in the mountains of Nicaragua. We stayed here for 8 days because it was so amazing. And now it's time to hit the road, head down to the capital. It's 3.5, 4 hour drive, because I go to the knee doctor this afternoon. Fingers crossed, guys. But with that, we're going to end this video, and we will see you in a few days. Cheers. If you liked this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when we put out new videos. To see behind the scenes action and help support our journey, head over to our YouTube membership page. You can find the link in the video description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in a few days.